So after I filled out my sheet, I decided to start with my portrait of me, and I used my picture from my micrography. Now, if you need to trace your portrait like you did in micrography, you can go ahead and do that. That is not a problem. But I'm not going to bore you with my whole drawing video, but I just wanted to show you some of the highlights of it. And you can see I'm, working on my eyes, and then you'll see I start using my pencil to measure parts of my face and where they belong together from my picture. And so I sped it up a little bit. So you could start seeing that I start measuring and just sort of sketching it in. And then I start making sure that I start shading it in. And nothing's really going to be white on my face. It's all going to be shaded in. And I do that just with the regular pencil. And you could use a Q-tip. You can use a tissue paper to shade it in. But the more shading you get, the better you get, the better it looks. I use my fingers. And then you can get those real white spots with going back and using an eraser and get some really shiny spots. Like I try to get the shiny spots on my cheeks, and I just go back, and it looks really creepy right now. And then I end up cutting off my hair because I just wasn't into doing my hair as much, so I ended up cutting it off and using it to my advantage. So there's just me drawing and just using my techniques, and it was actually quite fun. I haven't drawn in a long time. So I finish up my face drawing, and then I'm going to put it aside for a little while until I get to my other parts. And you can see I'm going to finish it off in collage. I ended up drawing a giant eye, which I'm not going to sit and show you how I drew my giant eye. Then I do my background, and I do the wet on wet technique because that's my favorite. And I do the blues. I decided to do the blues, and that comes from my planning sheet. And then guess what? I changed my mind as I start laying out my design. I changed my mind and I decided I'm not going to go with the blues. I'm going to go with the pinks that were also on my planning sheet. So I go back and I repaint it pink. But I have, from my planning sheet, I had flowers on there, and I had clouds, and I had cows, and it's all from this moment that I had with my friend Mindy, who passed away. And it's this dream, and it's a funny story, and it's also a sad story. And so I used instead of tears, I found butterflies, and so I used, here's me drawing clouds as part of my dream. And then I'm going to cut those out. So you don't have to draw everything on one piece of paper. You can draw them all on different pieces of paper and then cut them out. And that's what I did. I made my whole thing kind of a collage so that I could make mistakes, and I can change them, and I can move them around, and I can move everything around on my paper when I finished. But then so I found pictures in magazines of flowers, and then instead of the teardrops, I found butterflies, monarch butterflies, and it made so much sense to me to use the monarch butterflies because I was thinking about Day of the Dead and how the butterflies represent souls, and my friend had passed away. So instead of using tears, I used the butterflies coming out of the eye. And just the whole idea of the eye being the all-seeing. I watch Lord of the Rings a lot, so the eye above it. And so I thought that would be really cool to add. So I finish up the clouds, and then you're going to see I'm going to move on. I'm going to change my background. And then the rest of the video is just shots of the changes that I make. So I'm just finishing up my clouds. I just want to show you how many layers I put in on each cloud and how much I take my time. So here we go. All of a sudden I decided I want a pink background. So I went over the blue and I just changed it to pinks because I thought that would work better on my picture. And then I start arranging everything. And I move it around a couple times and decide where I'm going to put everything before I glue it down. I arrange it and I arrange it again and I arrange it again before I actually start gluing everything down. And then I noticed on my eye I had that little shadow there, so I decided I'm going to put shadows on everything to try to make them look like they're like coming up off the page. So you're going to see that. I start with the butterflies. So there's the butterflies coming out, and the cows are representative of my friend Mindy. And now over here you can see all the shading that I put in, especially around the edges of the paper. I spent a lot of time using colored pencil and adding shading. And then you could see around the butterflies that I added those little itty bitty shadows just to give it some look like they were coming up off the page. And a little bit on the cows and then on my face and around the clouds so that they looked like they were a little bit more dimensional and that they looked like they were coming up off the page. And I thought that was really important for me. But especially the time I spent around the edges of the picture was really important. And I think it really changed the look of the picture.